that's fine. Okay.
I think, Andrea, you're sounding great.
Okay, well, good. I'll go ahead. It looks like it's 2:01, so I'll get started, and I'm the briefest part of this, so if I'm not as clear as we would like, it won't last long, is the good news. Sounds like we worked out some technical kinks, and we're all set to go for today's really exciting webinar. Just a little background on this series. First of all, my name is Andrea Falcon, and I am the Facilities Health and Environment Liaison at the U.S. Department of Education. And so I run the Green Strides webinar series, which this session is part of, and also our Green Ribbon Schools Recognition Award. You may have heard that we launched the award last year to honor public, private, elementary, middle, and high schools reducing their environmental impact and costs, improving health and wellness, and providing effective environmental education. What's great about that recognition award is that the impact is so much larger than the sum of the honorees. We had 78 schools selected last year, but the award allowed us to really spotlight these issues of facilities, health, and environment, and to connect schools and states and district education officials with so many wonderful resources available at different federal agencies and other partners. And this is one of those sessions, getting the word out about those resources and also the school's best practices. If you'd like to see more about what the honored schools, the 2012 honored schools are doing, definitely check out our site. You want to go to the ed.gov site. There's another greenribbonschools.org. That's not us. So if you go to the ed.gov site and search Green Ribbon, you'll find our site. And there you have a full list of resources, such as Hands on the Land and other agency resources specifically for schools, as well as our blog and newsletter and Facebook link. And through our newsletter, you can find out about more webinar series sessions. We have one pretty much every week scheduled through next fall. With next week, we have
everyone,
NASA
I think
again,
we just lost
talking
Andrea.
about solar energy and science resources. So that should be a great session next Wednesday the 12th at 4 o'clock. I hope you'll join us for that one as well. Thank you so much for coming today, and I will turn it over to the Hands on the Land coordinator, Gail.
Yes, I just had a little trouble with my audio
Gail
just
Smith,
now as well.
The program coordinator of Hands on the Land.
Thank you, Andrea. I hope everyone can hear us. We've had a little difficulties with our audio. In fact, mine just, I was unable to unmute and then get my microphone back set. So welcome everyone, and thank you, Andrea, for that wonderful introduction. And I must also thank Andrea for her help in getting our Hands on the Land webinar scheduled for today with the Green Strides webinar series. She was very instrumental in making that happen for us. There's also a couple other people I want to thank before I forget who have been helping us behind the scenes with the technology, and some of you caught that earlier if you logged on early. One is Drew Burnett. Drew Burnett is with our U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and he's also with our Hands on the Land Network, a partner with our PRE-team, Partners in Resource Education, and he was very instrumental in getting the technology set up through the National Conservation Training Center in Washington, D.C., and the other gentleman that's behind the scenes is William McWilliams, and I'll call him the man behind the curtain today, our Oz, so to speak. So again, thank you very much for joining us today. And again, my name is Gail Smith. I am the program coordinator for Hands on the Land, and I am located in the Central Rockies of Colorado. Also joining us today, as you can see from your slide, is Stuart Miles. Stuart is a 7th grade teacher from Evergreen Community Charter School in Asheville, North Carolina. And what makes our program unique today, I feel, for the Green Strides series is that Stuart's school, Evergreen Community Charter, is a Green Ribbon school. And we're going to have an opportunity to hear how his participation with Hands on the Land is a real-life example of the benefits of Hands on the Land. In addition, we have Susan Sachs, And Susan is the Education Coordinator at the Appalachian Highlands Science Learning Center at the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And Susan has been involved with Hands on the Land for quite some time. She's very instrumental in developing some of the environmental programs, environmental monitoring programs, I should say, with Hands on the Land that we will be highlighting during today's webinar. And I do want to give a little plug for Susan. She is going to have one of her environmental monitoring activities published in an upcoming book on citizen science. This book will be compiled by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and published by NSTA. So we look forward to hearing about that and watching for that book. Again, I see some of the comments in our chat area that we're still having some of our audio breaking up for people. I am using our computer and test, or my computer, and hopefully it's coming through to most of you. But I will continue. Last but not least, today for our presenters is Dave Zelenka, and a very important part of the Hands on the Land network. He is our website administrator. Dave has been involved with Hands on the Land pretty much since the inception of this whole program. And he has a little bit of history, obviously, with Hands on the Land, and he's going to be giving us a tour of the Hands on the Land network, or the website today, and helping us understand how you can get involved in Hands on the Land. And I usually do presentations live. This is one of the first times I've done it just through the computer, but we'll do this a little virtually. If you can raise your hand if in the audience today you are a partner with federal agencies, public lands or waterways, or raise your hand if you're with some other public lands or waterways. If you're an educator or an administrator with an educational program or education program provider. And the reason why I do that is I think you'll find that our Hands on the Land network is quite diverse. It's a multi-agency program, and it is quite multifaceted. Today's presentation is going to work as an overview with these 3 points, these 3 objectives. And I do want to mention that we do have links coming at the top. If you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see that we're posting some links. And one of the links is going to be a survey that we'll send out to our audience today that you can access. It is a SurveyMonkey survey to find out how well you like the webinar today and how you feel are the benefits of Hands on the Land. And some of you have obviously seen, and you've done webinars before, that we have a chat down at the bottom. And as I can see from the audio, I am hearing some other voices, so I'm hoping that other people on the line have muted their microphones because I'm hearing some background talking in the back, and that might be conflicting with how people are hearing some of the audio for us today. But here are the 3 objectives that we want to reach today. We want to highlight how Hands on the Land supports environmental literacy, and I also want to add in there environmental stewardship. We want to describe how you can get involved with Hands on the Land, and those of you that are already members with Hands on the Land, we want to make sure that you understand how you can get more involved with Hands on the Land and help us build our network to share our resources of best practices of environmental literacy. And then lastly, we want to demonstrate how to use the interactive Hands on the Land website. And I need to preface this with the understanding with our 1-hour overview that we have for our webinar time today. Hands on the Land is quite involved, and we'll just be, in a sense, skimming the surface of some of these points when we give you some of our highlights today. So I encourage you to get back into the Hands on the Land website. I encourage you to take a look at the website features, and feel free to send us questions, email questions that we can support you with in the future. Rather than having me simply explain what Hands on the Land is, I would like at this time for Dave Zelenka, if he can hear me, I hope he can, to get a video, a short, very informative video, I should say, about what Hands on the Land is. And so I'm going to have Dave, if you could link that video in for us at this time.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
One little note. It looks like Andrea has her hand raised, and I thought she might want to say something.
Oh, Andrea, absolutely. Sorry, I missed that.
Nope, sorry, that must be still raised from when we were doing your survey. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. Okay, well, here's the video.
Let me
All right,
lower that. Yep. Sorry.
The innovative Hands on the Land program, a national network of outdoor classrooms, improved on earlier efforts not only by connecting students, teachers, and parents to the public lands and waterways, but also by linking federal educational sites to one another. The program was first piloted in 1999 with 10 locations nationwide, including BLM's Alaska Campbell Creek Science Center and BLM Nevada's Red Rock Canyon, now a national conservation area. HOL is supported by Partners in Resource Education, PRE, a public-private alliance that includes 7 federal agencies: the BLM, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, National Resources Conservation Service, Environmental Protection Agency, and National Marine Sanctuaries, an office of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Today, 110 federal sites, reaching hundreds of students per year, are participating in the HOL network, effectively making it America's largest classroom. Hands on the Land offers students the opportunity to study myriad subjects in a variety of outdoor settings, from Alaska's boreal forest to Florida's mangrove swamps, from southwestern deserts to the Great Plains. Agency resource specialists and volunteer educators from HOL sites supplement outdoor program components with classroom visits. Students are also exposed to issues confronting 21st century land managers, delving into such topics as sustainable forestry, habitat fragmentation, native plant restoration, and the effects of fire on natural systems. Service learning opportunities are also available at some HOL sites through participation in National Public Lands Day and other volunteer initiatives. And HOL programs have been instrumental in the development of supportive, mutually beneficial, and long-lasting relationships between the BLM and local communities. Educating children in the outdoors has proven to be effective in enhancing student test scores and motivation, increasing understanding of natural processes, and cultivating attitudes of respect and responsibility. Students participating in HOL programs also gain a head start in becoming informed citizens and dedicated stewards of their public lands. Many HOL sites also offer workshops to equip teachers with the skills to take full advantage of HOL outdoor.
All right, looks like that was chopped at the end there, so we'll
Great, thank you,
go
Dave.
back to the...
And we'll get our slides put back up. That short video, which has been edited, I want to thank our BLM folks for putting that video together for us. But it gives you a little bit of a background of what Hands on the Land is. And I'm going to change the next slide. Hands on the Land is supported by what we call PRE, or Partners in Resource Education, and it's a collaboration of several federal agencies, and we have various logos for these federal agencies down at the bottom of our slides. Also, we have the National Environmental Education Foundation as part of our team with our network and PRE. So for those of you that like to take notes, here's the slide that really captures, I think,
what's now in talk mode.
This is what is, I think, the highlights of our program.
Is now in silent mode.
There we go. Is discussed with our pre-meetings. These are some of the talking points that are usually included with what is Hands on the Land. And I do want to encourage one other point on here to note that it does, Hands on the Land does enhance some place-based learning. It does enhance standards-based learning. And so for all of those people involved with Hands on the Land, we have an opportunity to connect our field sites across the nation with hands-on learning opportunities with our educational programs, our schools. And what we sometimes refer to is Hands on the Land is a national network of field classrooms and agency and educational resources that connect students, teachers, families, and volunteers to our public lands and waterways. And Hands on the Land then is a network that supports the best practices of field-based, hands-on learning opportunities. We have activities that are shared through our network, and thus we call it the best approach for teaching in America's largest classroom. Do make a note that we connect students to the outdoors, but it's not just a science type of program. We have many of our locations that are national parks and national monuments. So we use the outdoors and we use the natural, historical, and archaeological settings. There's a lot of heritage of our nation, the history and the preservation. As some of you may have seen in our chat, we are recording this webinar session, so unless and if you don't want to take notes on this, we will have the webinar available to you on our website. So what is environmental literacy these days? It's huge, and what do we really mean by that? Well, as Andrea introduced so well, with the Green Strides or the Green Ribbon Schools program, there are pillars that the Green Ribbon Schools need to address. And I feel with Hands on the Land, one of the benefits is how we can address those pillars. As you can see from this slide, we all recognize the importance of being in the outdoors and the health and wellness opportunities that it provides to our students and our families and our volunteers for enjoying their public lands and waterways. A second connection with Green Ribbon Schools and to any school and educational program working on environmental literacy is our STEM, which is the science, technology, engineering, and math connections, our service learning, and our green career pathways that provide opportunities for students to find out more about resource management. And thirdly, sustainability concepts and what we mean by the 3 E's of sustainability, how the environment is also connected to the economics and the social equity in our nation. And I think there's a 4th E these days of education. We do have another video coming up, and as Dave gets that loaded in, this will help us introduce an actual example and highlight of what Hands on the Land can do. Just recently in October, we had the students from Stuart Miles School, the Evergreen Community Charter School, go to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and participate in a lichen monitoring activity. And we're all going to learn how lichen is an indicator of air quality. So take it away.
Make sure to record your tree species and the number of your tree. Yellow side is the best.
Give us the cloud.
No!
Which one's the majority?
Crystals.
Next.
The first one is folios. It's kind of like leaves. And the second one is fruticose. And it's like shrubby or hair. And then the last one is crustose, kind of like crust on the bread. And then there's moss.
Air, and they're going to be absorbing sulfur from every which angle. So we do know in the Smokies that some of these foliar lichens, especially when they're wet and there's acid rain, they do bring in a lot of sulfur. We also know that some of the fruticose, even though they stick out from the tree, they have this nice kind of crunchy shell, which helps protect them a little bit. So unless they're very, very wet, they're not really going to pick up as much, where these foliar lichens are a little bit, I guess, juicier would be the way I would describe them. So they do tend to pick up air pollution a little bit more. So what we're checking is, over time, are we losing some of these more sensitive species, and are they being replaced by the more tolerant species? So your data today is really good information for us, and I know that you all did a very good job today at collecting data. Because I went around to each group and I saw that you were being very careful about crustose, foliose, fruticose, and I want to thank you for that. So your data is going to go into our database. We have it online. It's on a site called Hands on the Land, and we put your data on there, and that means that other groups who come in the future can compare to the information.
All right, thank you, everyone. And I want to mention that that video was put together. That video was put together by Stuart Miles' class, and what a great opportunity to have students learn about crustose, fruitiose, and my experience with lichen is nil, so I hope we all learned something from that opportunity. And I am going to change the slide and allow Stuart to come on board here so that he can present the benefits of his experience for his students and his school program and the curriculum and how it connects with Hands on the Land. So Stuart, I'm going to let you take it from here. Thanks.
Role today is to talk a little bit from the teacher's perspective. As Andrea mentioned earlier, my school, Evergreen Community Charter School, is actually a Green Ribbon school. And I want to put a little plug in before I start. The process for application for the Green Ribbon School was really illuminating for our school. A lot of the questions they asked help us look a little more thoughtfully at what we do as a school in terms of those 3 pillars that she mentioned in her talk. So just with that little plug, I'm going to move on to explain sort of what happened with our students. As you saw, the previous video was actually student created. And the pictures you can see gives an overview of what we did on our visit to Great Smoky Mountains National Park. As it was mentioned, it was in October, so nothing better than being in the Smokies in late October with the fall foliage. But we conducted this survey as a part of a larger study on air quality in the Asheville area. One of the advantages of the Hands on the Land program and collaborating with the staff at Great Smoky Mountain National Parks, it allows us to move beyond our classroom and even our school grounds to the much larger classroom and the much more exposed classroom of Great Smoky Mountain National Park. We traveled out to the site, and Susan, who will be presenting later, and her staff really guided us through the process. And I'm going to sort of give you an overview of what they did and how what they learned they took away from the classroom and hopefully helped improve the air quality in their homes. So there were 2 steps to our visit, and the first is lichen monitoring. When we got out there, there is nothing better. One of the big pillars of environmental education these days is health and wellness. The kids were out in the woods, they were experiencing the natural world, and a big part of it was, instead of just experiencing the natural world, was really getting a chance to look at the micro scale of the forest ecosystem. As you can see from the pictures in front of you, there was some lichen monitoring, and there was also some lichen collection where the students actually went out to various substrates and actually got some lichen off of substrates, and then we're analyzing them specifically. And we were also looking at the relative concentration of those 3 types of lichen they were looking at. When they are looking at the big, I guess, leap for 7th graders, middle schoolers, is really understanding the idea of a bioindicator. How can you use lichen, which is something that's ubiquitous in the Appalachians, but very little understood, and how can you use the information from those to determine what is the air quality in the area. So as you can see under Susan and the other staff, we broke up into groups and we actually checked out those trees. They shared their data out with their peers. They made meta connections between the type of tree and where they found different lichens. They did some mathematical analysis. It really brought together a lot of those pieces of STEM. They had to use the science to figure out what they're looking at. There was some technology a bit that will come up later on in the web posting. The engineering was how to make it work, how to gather things, and then the math was actually doing the analysis of the data they gathered. All in all, it was a very powerful experience for my students, and it was one that they really got a chance to enjoy. The other piece is something that's called tardigrades. Now, if you think lichen are very little known, tardigrades are something that are even less known. This particular topic of study is something that's very dear to my heart. Tardigrades are what are called extremophiles. They're microscopic organisms that live on lichen. They live in various different ecosystems. And they have this incredible ability to withstand a lot of different environments that really gets a buy-in from students, in addition to being pretty cute, in my opinion. So while one group was studying the lichen, the other group were actually in the lab. And as you can see from the pictures, they were actually using video microscopes. They soaked the lichen they collected in a different solution. And then we're looking at the microscopes to try to identify the different pieces they have. When this was presented, they were looking at the tardigrades, but it was also presented, once again, the advantage of the hands on the land was presented as a part of a bigger science picture. And that's something called the All-Taxa Biotic Inventory, I hope I got that right, in the Great Smoky Mountain National Parks, which is an effort by the scientists to identify everything living in the Great Smoky Mountain National Parks. And obviously your deer and your bear are what the students think when they think of diversity, but in actuality, they really got a glimpse into the micro world. So in addition to seeing tardigrades, they were seeing rotifers, they were seeing various microorganisms they wouldn't normally see that gave them a glimpse into really the depth of the science. And that's something that you really only get in America's public lands and the wilderness areas, which are so preserved and so studied. So that was another really great connection, which I think helped the students have a greater understanding of what they were doing. Jumping one. So to give you a bigger picture of what this meant to the students, this was actually not just a one-day affair. The trip served as a kickoff, and a very enjoyable one, to a bigger project where many of the same practices that they used in their lichen monitoring, they actually did on trees in their own home. The type of monitoring they were doing really just requires transparency, the ability to record data, and a keen pair of eyes and observational skills. So after this trip, they basically went off around to trees in their yards or their neighborhoods and also looked for relative lichen concentration, thus allowing us to make a map of sorts using Google Earth of the area to say where in the Asheville urban area do we have a lot of lichen and where do we not, and thus how can we make some sort of, or attempt to make some sort of conclusions about the relative air quality throughout the area. So when one of the big takeaways from the Hands on the Land program is the use of America's public lands, but also using that as a chance for help them to analyze the urban, suburban, or rural environment in which the students live. The students came out of this with a greater understanding of biology and I think a greater connection to both America's public lands and their own environments. Hopefully it'll launch some of them on career pathways in STEM to see these naturalists out in the field and see me as a classroom teacher salivating over being able to teach in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Was really a great experience for everyone involved. So it's Hands on the Land really made an impact in my classroom, and I'd be glad to answer any questions as they come up. I'm not really sure how to check the hand raise situation, but I'd be glad to answer questions. So thank you. And I will now turn it over to
And Susan, this is Gail. If you are on the line, we are not hearing your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Susan.
I keep getting kicked offline, so I apologize if I stop talking. That means I'm no longer online. What I can't see are slides. I'm having bandwidth issues with my computer, so I'm still seeing Stuart's slides. Here we go. So I just wanted to mention that in Great Smoky Mountains National Park, we've been a Hands on the Land member since 2003. And for us, it's been a great partnership. It allows us to do things more creatively than we can do on the National Park Service website. For instance, we would have no way to post our data online. So it's just been a great benefit to us. And just a little bit about monitoring lichens in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Part of the reason why we chose to do this is because lichens are a bioindicator of sulfur in the air, a particular type of air pollution, and it's one of our big critical issues in the Smokies. So we wanted to find a way to connect with schools through the curricula because 7th grade and earth and environmental science students in high school and environmental, AP environmental students in high school all need to study air pollution. We thought that this lichen tardigrade pairing that we have made a really nice field activity. So that's kind of the why we chose to monitor lichens. Just a little bit about the air pollution issues that we have in the Smokies. If you can see on this map that the Smokies is located near a lot of these big red dots. Each red dot is a source of sulfur. And you can see our prevailing winds come from the northwest, and they also come up from the south. You can actually see the outline here of the Ohio River. The Smokies is kind of right where all this pollution to the south and to our northwest would meet. And we'll talk a little bit about why the Smokies has such bad air. And this graph right here, it's really showing you ground level ozone movement through 24 hours in a day. But the movement of ground level ozone is a good way to illustrate what's happening with sulfur and other air pollutants as well. So imagine that this curve that you see here is actually a mountain, and in the valleys, Cades Cove is the green line, which is a valley. All day long, pollution builds up, peaks at the midday, and then it starts to decrease at night. And it actually does disappear at night, and you might ask, well, where does it go? Where it goes is higher up in the mountains, because this air has warmed all day long. Warm air will rise. It goes up to the peaks where it's trapped by the cooler air that's on top of the mountains. We also, besides getting local air pollution, we also get winds that come into the Smokies at an elevation of about 3,000 to 5,000 feet. So if you can imagine, that would be the level of these blue lines here. The winds are coming in, bringing pollutants. That air is warmer. It also rises and gets trapped by the cooler air on top of the mountains. So what happens is we get these temperature inversions that can stick around for days and days and days, especially in the summertime. And then when it finally does rain, we have some issues, of course, with acid precipitation and low pH, and lichens are sensitive to the sulfur that's in the acid rain. So that's kind of why we chose to study lichens. Just another way to visualize how much extra sulfuric acid we get in the Smokies every year. Imagine there's 180 railroad cars that were filled with sulfuric acid over the park over the course of an entire year. And that's the extra sulfuric acid that we're getting. So it's not a small amount. It's pretty extensive. So Stuart talked, I'm sure I couldn't hear him, but I know he talked a lot about what the students did. But just to give you a better idea, when the students are working with our lichens, the first thing we do is, introduce them to lichens, show them why they're cool, and then show them about the different growth forms that they're going to be actually estimating. So in the video, you saw that the student was mentioning the 3 different types: crustose, fruticose, and foliose. They also are rating other things they see, which would be bare bark and moss. So the next step is students have to learn how to use a compass, because we're using the scientific method, and we want students to understand about controls. So when we collect data, we want them to collect at the same place on the tree year after year after year. So they have to figure out how to find due north, due south, due east, and due west. So that's the second step of our process. The third step is to measure the tree circumference. Again, it's a control, so they're doing that at a particular height. We do that at breast height, so 4.5 feet from the ground. And then they're using a grid sheet to classify what's underneath the lichens. The grid sheet has 9 squares, and each square has 10 small circles in it, and they're just rating what they can see. You might actually be able to see some of the circles showing through, is it crustose, foliose, bare bark, etc. Everything gets recorded onto a data sheet, and really ultimately what we're after is the percentage of total coverage for each of the different growth forms, even if it's not lichen, if it's moss, bare bark, and so on. And you can see the data sheet has some of those control things I was talking about earlier. For the monitoring itself, we do put all of our data onto the Hands on the Land website, and you can see on the website, if you are a teacher and you want to do this, or you're at a park and you want to do this, our lesson plan is up there with all the sheets that you need, as well as the data sheet itself. So everything that you would need to do this study in your classroom or at your park site is on the Hands on the Land site. We actually will enter the data for each group onto the website, and you can see it's just the final results. So the particular tree, that Evergreen Community Charter School, the yellow buckeye, it had 50% fruticose, 6% foliose, 16% bare bark, etc. And then for us, the reason why we want people to post their data online is because we want a teacher to be able to go back to the classroom and actually complete the scientific method, which would be data analysis and reporting. So if the data is there in a 3-hour field trip, we don't have the time to really examine the data. We can just talk about what we see that day, but a teacher can go back and look at previous data, have students do graphing, have them ask original questions of the data, and to me that's really the beauty of the Hands on the Land website. When we wrap up, we just talk about how different types of lichens they're not equally sensitive. For instance, foliose lichens tend to be more sensitive than crustose and even fruticose lichens, and that's because they're wetter and they're absorbing more sulfur. Lichens don't actually absorb pollutants when they're dry. They need to be wet to do that. So since foliose stays wet longer, they are picking up more air pollution than other growth forms. So we're looking to see if over time if we see any particular changes. So for us, the partnership with Hands on the Land has just been phenomenal. I love the databases. I know teachers who use them really get a lot out of analyzing data. And I just want to also thank Evergreen Community Charter School, because not only do they come on our field trips, but they're the school that we often work with when we're doing piloting of new lessons. So we really do appreciate our partnership with both Hands on the Land and Evergreen Community Charter School. Thank you.
And thank you, Susan and Stuart, for making this very great contextual connection for our participants today, so they can get an example of a fantastic way that Hands on the Land does connect with our schools and promotes environmental literacy and stewardship. And coming up next as our presenter is going to be Dave Zelenka, all the way from Washington State. So I think we've covered the whole country today with our presenters. And what Dave will be presenting is how to get involved with Hands on the Land, as well as doing a rather brief tour of the Hands on the Land website. And again, I want to encourage our participants today, our audience members, to definitely go to the Hands on the Land website, take a look at these environmental monitoring areas and the resources that are available, the sites that we currently have on Hands on the Land. So Dave, if you are ready, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you.
Okay, thank you, Gail. And I see that a number of people are online who we've worked with here with Hands on the Land over the years. So it's nice to see you all in the list of attendees. Again, my name is Dave Zelenka, and if you are, there's two types of people that are on this call right now. There's teachers and educators, and there's also potential site managers. And with Hands on the Land, we have sort of two types of users. We have teachers that come to the site that get educator resources. And we also have our site, our members who are affiliated with a public land. And so those members sometimes will apply for membership, and then they will be, we will host information about their site and their education programs on the Hands on the Land website. So welcome to both types of folks, and I'll try to show you around the website a little bit. Our homepage displays a blog entry, and for those who are teachers, for those who are site members, we can bump you up, and so you have the ability to post onto our blog. And we're looking for more postings, not only not only about your public land sites and what you're doing in regards to education, but we're also looking for student posted articles. We have a teacher in Port Angeles, Washington, who every year has his students and writes some articles on Olympic National Park and the things going on here, and then they will post their blog entries here, and the teacher goes through and gets them really nicely edited with the student, and then they send them to us, and then we prep it with the photograph and post it online. But we also can give you access to that, so you can post your information anytime you want. We have, I think, 117 or 18 sites now throughout the country. If you are a potential member, there's a place where you can go in and apply for membership for your site, and then it's reviewed by the agency member that you're related to, and then those folks will let us know if you're approved or not, and then we'll get you installed on the site. It's a great way to market your site and your materials to other teachers across the country. Google searches our database and searches the content on the Hands on Land site. And for small sites, Google is a great, it comes up as a high ranking on Google. So for those who are potential small site members, you don't have a lot of way to market your site. It's a great way to do that. For larger sites like Olympic National Park, they have such a high ranking already on Google that the Hands on Land materials don't get as high of ranking as information posted on their site. But if you're a small member, like a BLM site or a tiny monument somewhere, it really helps getting your information out there. So here's what the site profile looks like. So when you apply for membership, you will go into a database or go into the application form, and you will enter information. And you can enter as much as you want. There are some required fields, and we want one photograph when you do apply. And then that site goes to, that information goes to us, and then we approve it or actually send it on to the agency member. And for teachers who want to get involved, we in the past we've also tried to get teachers to contact a local public land and try to get their classroom to help get that site onto Hands on the Land. So if you're a teacher, you're not excluded from this process. You can contact your local land management site and try to get them involved. We also have an educator resources database, and for teachers and for our site managers, you can post into that. And it's just lesson plans, curriculum, videos that are out there that you think are interesting about your site. You can post a PDF file. You can post text-based content. You can organize it by grade, subject, formats, types, resource types. You can add a little icon. And we'd love to have this grow. And so if you are a teacher or a site member, you can start posting this. If you're a teacher, you'll need to sign up with Hands on the Land, and then you'll need to send us a note saying we'd like to post to your educator resources database. So we don't allow everyone to do that. You have to ask permission to specifically, or you have to be a site manager. Environmental monitoring. So Susan Sachs, of course, has headed up our environmental monitoring program. She's been the main driver, and we use some interesting tools that make it easy for us to create little simple databases online, which is really nice. It enables us to create custom databases fairly easy for our site members. Right now we have ozone biomonitoring, salamander, lichen, and terrestrial invertebrates, and those are all from the Great Smokies, but they aren't only used by the Great Smokies. There is a number of sites across the country that use those databases also. If you want to get involved with any of those, you'll once again need to send a note to us and say, well, we'd like to start a monitoring site. Here is where we want it to be done, and this is what we want to do. Tell us more information, help us get involved, and then we can set you up with that. The nice thing about Hands on Land, rather than the GLOBE program or the other programs that are out there, is that you can just go in and post ad hoc data. You can collect data with your students. It doesn't have to be super refined because it's associated with your site and it's for your information. Susan Sachs, of course, does a really good job of getting good data from her students, and her data is filtered through her and her staff, and so she gets good quality stuff. But if you do have like a water quality monitoring program at your site, where the data is student data, if you know what I mean, it's not as good as you might want it to be, you can still open up a Hands on Land a site for water quality monitoring or like, of course we want you to have good data, but we don't put in any real strong restrictions or protocols for doing it. Program provider. So we also have a search tool on the website that enables you to contact your local program provider. So let's say you're a teacher in North Carolina and you want to get in contact with Susan. Well, you can search by state and you can find Susan in there and you can contact her. That goes for all of our sites. If you're a site manager, your name in our contact directory is public, and so teachers can find you. And so this is a way teachers can connect with our members. And I mentioned the blog. The Hands on the Land blog is something we want to keep going. We want it to expand. We want students to be posting quality materials there. We want site members to be posting materials that have to do with education at their site. So if you want more information or you want a tour of how to use that, feel free to contact me. I'm kind of the technical support here on Hands on the Land. The last thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to stop sharing and I'm going to go to the website just briefly. Let's see if I can do this. And I only have another minute or so because we want to have questions here, but I still want to show you where things are. Okay, so hopefully you can see the website now. The home page is here. I'm just going to give you a brief run through. These top menus here are the main things we offer at Hands on Land. So environmental monitoring, our educator resources, the site profiles, and there's also, I'd like you to note that there's a slideshow gallery. So if you're a teacher and you go to a site, we can give you a place in there where you can post photographs from the field, and of course site members can post them to our slideshow gallery also. It's kind of like a Flickr tool. Contact directory is up top. That's where you can find your local Hands on Land representative. And when you log in, after you become a member, you'll log in here. Actually, let me log out. See how it works. Log in here. And then depending on your access level, you'll have a large or a small admin menu. So here's where you can edit your site profile if you're a site member, post a blog article, or post an educator resource. If you're a teacher and we give you permission to post, you'll post a blog article and post an educator resource, and you'll also be able to have the slideshow user panel here. And then there's some admin tools here for Gail and I and other folks who have that level access. One last thing I'm going to do, it's like I'm over my time here, but I want to show you where the registration is. So for those members, for those who are not members yet, we definitely recommend you you click on the How to Joins on the Hands on the Land, and you follow the process. If you're just an individual, you'll click this button and register. If you want to become a site member and have your site on Hands on the Land, then you're going to have to become a member first, and then you're going to apply for membership. So you'll have to log in. And then after you log in, you will apply for membership. And you'll have this nice long application that gives you all the information about your particular sites. And we definitely, if you could geolocate your site, so you don't have to go in and do that also, so you know where you're at. Okay, well, I really don't have much time here. I guess I'm over. Let me go into the environmental monitoring just real briefly and show you where this is. The terrestrial, actually the lichen monitoring is in here. We're in our blue lichen or environmental monitoring section. The data sheet is right here. The online data sheet is right here, and you can search the data. And then looks like I'm gonna turn it over to Gail now, since I've run out of time. Well, I think we have questions now, so let me turn it over to Gail, and then we're going to take your questions. If you have questions, feel free to enter those in the chat for right now.
Great, Dave, that was fantastic. And as we're getting our questions put in, it looks like we're starting to get a couple. I do want to mention that the website has been in operation through the help with Dave Zelenka for quite some time, and it has been undergoing some changes. And we look forward to getting some of your feedback about our website in the future. We have a question from Tracy. Does Hands on the Land coordinate data collected by students on field trips? Dave, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. Okay. So all of our custom databases have to be created. So if you have a data collection program that is custom, we would need to set one up for you. And the process of setting up a custom data, like if, let's say you're doing fire monitoring somewhere, you would go through Gail, and Gail would say, well, I think we can do this, or I think it's not really applicable, or it's not going to have enough breadth, or she's going to say, yeah, let's go for it. And so then she would contact me, and I would set up a new instance on Hands on the Land. But just general data we don't collect unless it has to do with any of the projects we already have underway.
And to add to that, I do encourage our site folks that do have Hands on the Land sites already or are considering having a Hands on the Land site to post if they're doing any other type of citizen science. In fact, citizen science may be one of our next webinars. So if you have students through an educational program with their schools that are doing GLOBE or some other type of water quality like world water monitoring, that would be just fine, and we would just want to know that on your Hands on the Land site application. Are there any other questions?
One thing I didn't add, there is if you go to the web links at the top right of your webinar page, there's going to be a post-webinar survey that we'd like you to fill out. There's a link right there, and then there's a printable HOL Hands on Land flyer in case you want to pass it out, just pass the information out to your boss or something like that.
Great, and since we have this slide that says membership criteria up on our screen, you can go through this. It is posted on the website, obviously. But as you heard from Susan Sachs, the commitment that we would like through Hands on the Land is more than a one-time getting the students to a field site, and that's the only time that they'll participate. You heard from Susan that she has had student groups come to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park numerous times for their data collection, and that's when it becomes meaningful for both the students and for the site managers to develop what we call this best practices. So do consider that if you are potentially wanting to become a new Hands on the Land site. Are there any other questions? If not, I'm moving through some of our slides here. If you would like to still contact either Dave Zelenka or myself, here is our contact information. And we also have this contact information posted on the website. But we certainly would like you to get in touch with us if you have additional questions or comments. And as Dave mentioned, we will have the survey that can be accessed It's a link that's up at the top right of your screen. We do have another question. What about sites collaborating on environmental monitoring activities? How would sites make that happen? And definitely Hands on the Land is a collaboration. It is a network. So Dave, do we have any examples of this collaboration? How can we make this happen?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you have a specific database or data sheet or environmental monitoring program that you have, like Susan was explaining, she's been working with us to put that data onto the Hands on Land website for the past almost 10 years. But if you have specific collaborative projects going on, that you might want to coordinate with other people, well, you could use the blog to post information about it. So you could market your project. That would be one way to do it. Or if it's something let's say you had 2 or 3 sites across the country that you were working with on one specific project, like our fire monitoring example, you could set up a database with us, and if we approved it, we would set it up for you and give you login access to it.
And I agree, Dave, the blog is a great example that we can utilize through Hands on the Land. In fact, I believe one of our Bureau of Land Management site, or actually 2 sites, are going to be using our Hands on the Land blog to do that very type of collaboration. Maybe not specifically with environmental data collection or monitoring, but definitely using the Hands on the Land blog to connect 2 different Hands on the Land sites. And students will be the ones in charge of those blog posts. And I see that we might have some other people putting in some questions. Christopher Dietz, which BLM sites? You know, Christopher, you might have to email me so I can get back with you which BLM sites are doing that collaboration. One of our pre-members is Derek Baldwin. He's actually here in Colorado, and he will be able to help me answer that question for you. Other questions? We have Susan Sachs, I think, responding. And thanks, Christopher. Susan Sachs is adding, we are collaborating with multiple sites on several of the projects like ground level ozone monitoring and water quality. And you can just join in on most of the studies that are already active. And do take a moment to explore, when you get a chance, our Hands on the Land website through the environmental monitoring database that's already set up for you. Any other questions? We are just now at our hour mark. And this is our last slide. I do want to thank everyone. I do want to thank you for your flexibility, as we did have some audio difficulties, which we'll work out for the next time. And I look forward to seeing some comments and getting your surveys. But I really appreciate our presenters today and thank them for their time. And at this point, I'm going to turn off my microphone. Again, thank you, and I hope everyone has a great holiday.